the Iran nuclear deal, Iran will very soon, within a few months this year, be permitted to buy conventional arms from both Russia and China. And we know that both countries have been major suppliers for the Iranian regime, including missiles, drones, all kinds of technology.
In fact, they're talking about if there's a drone, if there's a drone strike or a drone pushback, it'll come from Chinese technology. And as a matter of fact, we're not absolutely sure even today what hit the Arab, the Saudi Arabian facility, but it might have been a Chinese drone controlled by Iranian, patrolled by the Quds Force, right?
Yes, the Chinese have been supplying a lot of electronic warfare equipment to the Iranians. The North Koreans have been sharing missile technology. Now, the North Koreans now have a long-range missile, and there's really no weapon system that the North Koreans have that they haven't shared internationally. So
if you have the economic sanctions are working, and we haven't even gotten our European allies to buy in 100% or to do it, you got France and Macron, I think, trying to backdoor us on this all the time, and China is blatantly not. China buys. I think they take most of the oil. They pay RMB for it, right? So they still got to convert it into cash. They've also made massive loans. Xi went to Iran, I think, in September of 2016 to talk about the strategic partnership that they're going to have, and they consider it their strategic partnership. In fact, it's open in the Chinese Communist Party. They consider Iran their partner in what they call Southeast Asia or Southwest Asia, however you look at the map, but that's their anchor, that's their partner there for their expansion of One Belt, One Road, and also now their maritime strategy. Last week, I know it wasn't a big exercise, but the symbolism of China, Iran, and Russia doing a naval exercise in the North Arabian Sea, in the Persian Gulf, how big a deal is that?
Oh, it's huge. Strategically, the Chinese talk about their, quote, peaceful rise, but what is not mentioned is that part of that rise depends on the demise of the United States. So their secondary strategy...
Part of it or central to it?
It's part of it.
What's the other part? Because if we don't see the demise of the United States, there's no rise.
Yeah. Well, they understand that their success to become the dominant superpower in the world is the demise.
Is
of the
that
United
their focus?
States.
Is
Yes.
their focus to become the dominant superpower?
Absolutely.
There's no doubt in your mind.
Yes.
How do you back that up? Give me some data here, because you're going to have guys. I know people's heads are blowing up right now. By the way, for people that want the book, it's going to come out in audio. Encounter Roger Kimball, the great guys at Encounter Press, one of the classiest presses out there. I'm very impressed, Gertz.
Yeah.
Deceiving the Sky. It's coming out in audio at some time in the future.
Yes, very soon.
Very soon,
Yeah,
audio.
yeah.
Okay, let's go back in the book. How do you back up the fact that China? I thought it's all win. I thought it's all win-win. But Hank Paulson and Henry Kissinger keep telling it's a strategic economic dialogue. They're strategic partners. It's all win-win. You're saying something different.
Total deception. And again, to understand China, you have to understand their use of deception. Win-win means everything wins for China. All you need to do is look at Xi Jinping's elicitation of the China dream. This is their strategy to make China the dominant global power. They believe
Make China great again after the 150 or 200 years of humiliation by the West.
Yeah. And they have almost a racist, the Communist Party of China has almost a racist approach to this, that the Chinese nation must become the dominant global power. And they're working very diligently to do that. Again, there's an encirclement strategy. The Belt and Road Initiative is, again, a Trojan horse of expansionism, economic.
What is for our audience, what's the Belt and Road Initiative?
It's a major multi-trillion-dollar investment project. And the way it works is they'll go into a poor country.
That really takes from China and as a logistics train of ports, highways, infrastructure that goes from China all the way into Europe, right? Through Central Asia and through Iran, connects
South
all these
America.
Countries. Well, Sub-Saharan Africa and South America come next. But the key thing is the Eurasian landmass, right, to Europe.
Yeah. And so they'll go into a country and they'll say, we'll help you build a railroad. In fact, we'll even help finance it for you. And so they'll finance it at exorbitant rates. And when the country says, well, we can't pay you the loan back, well, then they'll say, well, that railroad's ours, or that port facility
right
is
now,
ours.
in this One Belt, One Road, or their hegemonic expansion on the Eurasian landmass, with Iran as, I think Iran is their central partner, more important than Russia, more important than Turkey, more important than the vassal state Korea, which they're all important, but Iran being the central key that picks the lock for them. They are the financier. They've got big credit lines to them. They buy their oil. This is the way why are we not, instead of taking out Soleiman, which, by the way, is a bad guy, and I hope he deserves his time in hell, right, for what he's done to American troops, but it's one thing of putting IEDs out and going after individual American fighting forces, as bad and evil as that is, and it should be shut down, has to be shut down, versus the real kill shot, which is they're working with the power that is in our face, that they want to be and will be the existential power. They're an existential threat because they will be the dominant power of the 21st century. They will write the history of the 21st century. Knowing that their central link is Iran, why are we not all over that link?
Well, there's still a debate within the Trump administration on how to deal with China. And part of the problem is, for the last 40 years, we've integrated our economy with China. So we're stuck now. We're looking at ways to decouple. I recently interviewed Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. I said one of the debates in foreign policy now is the notion of decoupling our economy from China. And he thought about it for a minute and said, our policy is not to decouple. However, China could decouple itself from the U.S. economy if it continues with its illicit trading, behavior and other activities. So again, there's a debate within the Trump administration. Trump has made incredible progress in shifting the focus of American foreign policy towards China, and it's just incredible. But it's not a done deal. There are forces in there that want to continue, go back to the engagement policy of the 1990s, which reached its zenith under Bill Clinton, where we ended up doing nuclear cooperation and space cooperation, and what happened?
Much of the military technology they have today was given to them by the Clinton administration, or people that were supporting and financing, L'Oreal, these companies were...
Every deployed warhead in the U.S. arsenal was compromised to China through espionage during the 90s as a result of nuclear cooperation and space cooperation.
Did Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, did they find that a clear and present danger? Did the Democrats look at the history of their administrations? Repeat that what you just said about what happened with China in the 90s.
Yeah, the Clinton administration had a policy of unfettered engagement. They pushed and got them in the World Trade Organization, even though they weren't a market economy. And as a result of espionage...
But this was also pushed by Republicans. It wasn't just Clinton. It was the Clinton administration, yes, but the pom-poms were out. This was totally bipartisan, right? Not maybe the national security technology aspect of it, but China as part of the most favored nations, World Trade Organization, and they're going to become liberal. It's going to become a liberal democracy over time.
It was a 30, 40-year gamble that was an utter disaster. This notion, if we just trade with China, if
was it a gamble, or is it, we talk about our intelligence apparatus. This is the other thing about this intelligence apparatus has been wrong on everything. Wrong and lied to people's faces about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Part of it was wrong. Part of it just lied with a straight face. They completely missed the rise of China, and I say miss in quotes because I'm not so sure certain elements of it were not compromised and did miss it. And now we depend upon their intelligence to take out Soleimani. Why? And you look at the intelligence, the whole thing, and the impeachment of President Trump. It had up until President Trump in the summer and fall of 2016, when he's identifying China as the great existential threat, and that they've taken all our jobs and we financed them and gave them the technology, or they've stolen it. And Obama goes into the Rose Garden with Xi and signs this thing to no more cyber intrusions, no militarization of South China Sea. She signed it, looked at the American people, lied in their face. More cyber intrusions, total militarizations of the South China Sea in Hong Kong. They lied to our face, to both the Thatcher, to Reagan, to everybody, to the Bushes. Lied to their face about what their intentions were in Hong Kong. In the Paris Accord, we now know the Financial Times breaks the story that, hey, they're building $500 billion worth of coal-fired plants to get their economy going again, to become, get as cheap energy as possible, since they don't have any natural resources and oil. They lied to people, so they had no intention of doing anything in Paris Accord. They look in, and this is not about the Chinese people. Chinese people are the most noble, decent, hardworking people on earth. You can see that in Hong Kong, where in combination with English common law, they've built the third greatest capital market in the world. But the Chinese Communist Party is a collection of gangsters. They're in business with gangsters like in Tehran. The mullahs are just a gangster operation. Soleimani is a mob boss. This is why they're gangsters. They deal with Hezbollah. Hezbollah's a group of gangsters. Why are millennials on the streets in Beirut? Why are millennials on the streets in Baghdad? Why are millennials on the streets in Tehran? The same reason, ladies and gentlemen, that they're on the streets in Hong Kong. Because they're tired of the gangsters. Lebanon's now in total bankruptcy, right? $80 billion. The woman sat here, they don't even know where the money went, right? The money is stolen by gangster mentality, gangster operations. Why don't we treat these people like the gangsters they are? Why do we treat them as legitimate governments?
Well, I want to go back to what you mentioned earlier, and that's why did the U.S. get it wrong? And I spent a lot of time in Deceiving the Sky and my other books explaining it. And it's not just the policy community, it's the intelligence community. For decades, there has been a groupthink that that there is no threat from China. And I recount this in the book. In the late 90s, I went to the Defense Intelligence Agency for a briefing on the PLA, the People's Liberation Army. And it was a fairly vanilla briefing. And at the end of the briefing, a colonel came in and said, "The general would like to see you." And the general was the director of the DIA. I'm not going to say who it was because it was background. But he told me, he sat in the conference room, sat at the end of a table and told me, "China's not a threat." And I said to him, "Why do you think that?" And he essentially said, "Because they say they're not a threat." And I was astounded. I said, I could imagine
Barbarian Management 101.
But this, and the reason why he was saying that, it turned out a little bit later, was that one of the chief intelligence analysts in the DIA was a Chinese spy. It's a guy named Ron Monteperto. And he was the leading advocate for doing business with Chinese intelligence as they were a normal nation. So the groupthink within the intelligence community for many, many years was the notion that we can't treat China as a nuclear-armed communist dictatorship that it is, and that we have to treat them as a normal nation, and it was an utter disaster.
As we go back, the book is Deceiving the Sky. Bill Gertz, we're going to have it up. He's got a string of great books. He's got Information War. And if you want to go back and see the beginning, read The China Threat. I think it came out in 2000. That's amazing. Go read Bill Gertz's China the Threat in 2000. And you got to ask, why was everybody asleep? Why America slept? We only got a couple minutes left.